I'd been engaged to Daniel for 6 months when I decided to take over the rehearsal dinner plans. His family hadn't offered, and mine was too far away. So I took it as a quiet opportunity, not to impress, not to prove anything, but to extend an olive branch. His mother, Marisol, always kept a polite distance. She smiled, yes, but never asked much. His sister, Eva, was more direct. She's sweet, she'd said once in front of me, but she's not one of us. I laughed it off. Told myself she didn't mean it. I wanted to believe that with time, I'd be seen as more than just the girl marrying their son. So I planned the dinner. A Spanish-style garden restaurant, candlelit tables, custom floral arrangements with subtle blue orchids, Marisol's favorite. I arranged for a curated tapas menu that included Eva's gluten-free dishes. Even had the band learn a few of their father's favorite songs, just to honor his memory. I didn't tell them any of this. I wanted it to be a surprise. When the evening arrived, I was nervous. Not about the wedding, or the logistics, but about them. I walked in early, checked the seating, the lighting, the placements. My name wasn't on any banner. I didn't want attention. Just warmth. They began arriving slowly, Daniel's cousins, his aunt, a few old friends. Laughter filled the space, soft music playing in the background. Everyone looked genuinely surprised. Marisol pulled me into a hug and whispered, "You really did all this?" I nodded. She smiled wider than I'd ever seen. Then Eva walked in. She looked around the room once, didn't say a word to me, and sat with her mother. Daniel was chatting with his uncle, oblivious to the tension I'd felt crawl into the room with her. It wasn't until later, when the dessert trays were being passed, that I heard it. I had stepped into the hallway to adjust a missing candle at the front when I caught Eva's voice behind me. She wasn't whispering to hide, she just didn't care if I was close. "She's just pretending. He'll find out eventually." I froze. At first, I wasn't even sure I heard it right. But then Marisol's voice responded, "Eva," soft, but firm. I didn't wait to hear more. I just stood there, looking at the small blue orchid I was holding, suddenly meaningless. Pretending? Pretending what? That I cared? That I belonged? That I hadn't spent weeks arranging something they never asked for but would remember for years? I didn't cry. I didn't even walk away. I stayed still. Listening. Feeling my cheeks burn, not from shame, but clarity. There's something about being silently pushed aside that cuts deeper than direct insult. And yet, the older I get, the more I've learned that silence can also be power. That not every truth needs to be shouted. That night, I didn't confront Eva. I didn't mention it to Daniel. I just went home, opened my laptop, and started organizing every receipt. The invoice for the florist. The proof of custom gluten-free ordering. The emails with the band. The photos of the menus I designed. Not for revenge. For truth. For memory. For the moment someone might one day say again, "She was just pretending." And maybe you've been there, too, in a room where you gave everything, only to be treated like you didn't belong. If you have, then you already understand why this story matters. And maybe, just maybe, you'll want to hear the rest. I couldn't stop replaying it in my head. She's just pretending. He'll find out eventually. There was something surgical in how she said it, sharp, clean, almost rehearsed. Like it wasn't even about me, but something she'd been waiting to say. Maybe not out loud. Maybe not with me 2 steps away. But something that had been building for a while. I didn't mention it to Daniel. Not that night. I wanted to, I really did. But as we sat in the car driving home, him humming along to a song on the radio, I realized he had no idea anything had gone wrong. To him, the night was a success. To me, it had become a quiet turning point. The next morning, I woke up early. I opened my inbox and started compiling. Not because I wanted to expose her. But because I needed to remind myself that what I did was real. That I wasn't pretending. That every detail she dismissed had weight and time and intention behind it. Every payment had a name. Every flower had a reason. Every message with the chef, every call to the musicians, every sleepless night wondering if her family would like it, none of that was pretend. I didn't cry. But I did feel something shift inside me. That afternoon, I got a message from Marisol. "Thank you again for everything last night. You really thought of everything. I know Eva can be difficult sometimes." That last line hit harder than I expected. It meant she had heard the whisper, too. Maybe not all of it, maybe not clearly, but enough to know there was something wrong. For the first time in our relationship, Marisol acknowledged that I might have been mistreated. I didn't reply right away. I wanted to be thoughtful. I wrote back 2 hours later. "It meant a lot to me to do something for all of you. I just hope it wasn't too much." She replied with a single line, "It was perfect. Please don't let anyone convince you otherwise." I stared at that message for a long time. Meanwhile, Eva didn't say a word. No thank you. No text. No fake compliment. Just radio silence. Daniel noticed, too. "She's been weird lately," he said, 2 days before the wedding. "Did something happen between you two?" I shook my head. Nothing worth talking about. And it was true. Because I wasn't going to spend one more conversation defending my place in a family I'd already earned with action. Not blood, not last names, but intention. So I focused on what I could control. I added notes to my file. Photos from the rehearsal dinner. Messages confirming allergy accommodations. Itemized receipts showing I paid for everything myself. I wasn't sure what I'd do with all of it. But collecting it brought clarity. Proof, not of guilt or blame, but of presence. Of effort. Of quiet love. The whisper no longer stung. It transformed. It became a mirror held up to her, not to me. Because now I saw it, her insecurity. Her discomfort. Her need to tear down something she couldn't understand. And I didn't hate her for it. But I also wasn't going to protect her anymore. Because the truth, when told calmly, can echo louder than any insult ever whispered. I used to think keeping records was something people did out of fear or mistrust. Receipts, screenshots, forwarding emails to yourself, those were things people did when they expected drama. But after that night, I realized something else. Sometimes, it's about memory. About preserving proof of everything you gave, when no one else seemed to notice. My folder grew slowly over the week. I wasn't obsessive. I was intentional. The receipt for the musicians? Dated a month earlier. They'd thanked me for the chance to play at something so emotionally personal. The florist? She and I had exchanged over 20 messages, adjusting the colors from pink to light blue so they wouldn't clash with the napkins Marisol liked. The dinner menu? Customized. The dessert tray? Specially ordered because Eva couldn't eat dairy. I even had a PDF of the custom menus I had printed myself. I remember sitting on the floor that night, cutting and folding each one. None of this was for applause. I hadn't shown it to anyone. Not even Daniel. I didn't need applause. But when someone questions your sincerity, there's something deeply powerful in being able to hold up every piece of your truth, silently. It was the night before the wedding that the idea came to me. We were all staying at the same hotel, family scattered between floors. I ran into Marisol in the lobby. She looked tired, but happy. "Tomorrow's the big day," she said, holding her coffee. "You ready?" I smiled. "More than ready." She paused before she walked away. "Eva hasn't said much since the dinner," she added. But I heard what she said. I didn't want to cause more tension. I didn't expect her to admit it. Not out loud. But she did. And that changed everything. "She thinks you're trying too hard," she continued. "But I think that says more about her than about you." I nodded. I just wanted to do something kind. She smiled. You did. And I noticed. Later that night, I slipped an envelope under her hotel room door. Inside was a single page, printed out neatly. It was a list. Not an accusation. Just a list. Of everything the dinner had included. Flowers, food, music, timing, dietary notes. A short message at the bottom read. I planned this for you. All of you. Even her. I didn't sign it. I didn't have to. That was the moment I realized I didn't need confrontation. I didn't need to defend myself. I just needed someone to see what no one else had looked at clearly. Because pretending doesn't look like that. Pretending doesn't lose sleep over floral tones. Pretending doesn't accommodate allergies. Pretending doesn't pay for everything out of pocket, quietly. Eva's words had tried to erase me. That whisper, she's just pretending, was meant to plant doubt in the one place I'd worked to grow roots. But I had built that garden. Literally. Flower by flower, line by line, act by act. And now, someone saw it. The proof wasn't for her. It never was. It was for the one person who might hold the power to shift the way the rest of the family saw me. Not with a dramatic scene. Not with a fight. Just with facts. Gentle. Real. Undeniable. The morning of the wedding was quiet. I woke up before the alarm, sat on the edge of the bed, and stared at my reflection in the mirror. I didn't feel nervous. Not in the way I expected. I felt grounded. Still. Like something had settled inside me after weeks of tightness. The envelope had already been delivered. No name on the outside. Just the weight of a truth I no longer needed to carry alone. Daniel was asleep. Peaceful. And I wasn't going to disturb that peace. This wasn't about him. It never had been. The ceremony went smoothly. Smiles, photos, whispered prayers. Marisol kissed me on the cheek, tightly. I could feel something behind that gesture, something unspoken. She looked at me just a second longer than usual. She knew. At the reception, Eva didn't look at me once. She danced, she posed for pictures, she made jokes with cousins. But when I walked past her table, she fell silent. For once, I didn't feel invisible. I felt unshakable. I sat with Daniel as the speeches started. His uncle made a toast. A friend of ours followed. Then, to everyone's surprise, Marisol stood up. She wasn't on the list to speak. She held her champagne glass with both hands, and looked around the room. I just want to say something, she began. The room quieted. Sometimes, people join our lives and we don't realize how much they're giving until we stop and really look. My heart beat faster. This wedding, this weekend, has been beautiful. And I know many of you think it just came together magically. But I saw what went into it. I saw the hands behind the flowers, the voice behind the music, the heart behind the details. She turned her eyes toward me. Thank you for everything you did. For us. People clapped. Daniel smiled and kissed my hand. Eva didn't clap. She looked at her plate. It wasn't a confrontation. It wasn't drama. It was truth, served soft, but firm. And it was enough. After the cake, I stepped outside for air. The sun had just started setting behind the hills. I felt someone behind me. I turned, Marisol. She handed me the envelope. You didn't have to prove anything, she said. But I'm glad you showed me anyway. I didn't answer. I just nodded. She continued. I won't forget. It was all I needed. I didn't want an apology from Eva. I didn't even want her to change. What I wanted, what I had always wanted, was to be seen. Not as the girl Daniel loved. Not as the one who planned pretty events. But as someone whose love ran quietly beneath every choice she made. Eva's silence didn't hurt anymore. It revealed her. my silence didn't weaken me. It protected me. The receipts weren't weapons. They were evidence of care, of presence, of truth. We all leave traces of who we are and what we do. And sometimes, showing those traces is the most graceful form of resistance. I walked back inside, back to the music, to the laughter, to the new chapter one was beginning, not pretending, not waiting for permission, just fully present. The last guests had left. Only a few candles still flickered against the soft hum of the empty venue. I stayed behind to gather the programs left on tables, letting the silence wrap around me like a blanket. My feet hurt, my dress had loosened at the waist, and yet, something inside me felt steady. Not triumphant. Just whole. Eva never said goodbye. I saw her walk out through the side entrance without even glancing in my direction. A week ago, that would have crushed me. But now, I understood something I hadn't before. She didn't ignore me because I was invisible. She ignored me because she had already decided who I was supposed to be, and I didn't fit. To her, I would always be the outsider. The tryhard. The girl who smiled too much, planned too carefully, showed up with too many details. But she never saw the version of me who stayed up at night reprinting menus because the color tone was slightly off. She never saw me walking back and forth between catering calls and work meetings, triple-checking that Eva's meal was dairy-free, even though she'd never asked me to. That's not pretending. Pretending doesn't look like care. Pretending doesn't carry that kind of silence for that long. I don't regret a single thing I did, not the dinner, not the planning, not the quiet envelope. Because sometimes, offering your best is not about being accepted. Sometimes, it's about showing yourself what you're capable of giving, even when the audience turns its head. Marisol texted me 2 days after the wedding. She wrote, "That dinner was a turning point. Thank you for the way you handled it. You reminded me that grace doesn't need an audience to be powerful." I read that message 3 times. And I thought of all the women I've known, my mother, my mentor, even friends, who've held their tongues in rooms where they weren't welcomed, who gave more than was seen, who walked out carrying the weight of being misunderstood. That night, as I folded my dress into a garment bag, I whispered something to myself I had never said out loud before. I'm not pretending. And I don't need her to say otherwise for it to be true. If you've ever stood quietly in a room full of people who misread your presence, and still chose to give, to care, to carry yourself with dignity, you already know how this feels. You don't need applause. But maybe, just maybe, it helps to know you weren't alone. And if this story felt like yours in any way, I hope you'll stay for the next one. Because stories like this don't always get told, but they should.